Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Creating the Vision. I have a really sweet friend of mine who we've actually done a podcast together. We used to have one called the Corporate Mom Life podcast, and how we both kind of got started in this podcasting journey. Neither one of us are corporate moms anymore. So that's a unique little fact about us. But my guest this week is Emily Siegel. She is a friendship mentor, podcast host, working mom of two adorable little boys, and lover of all things Broadway musicals. We definitely connected on this and our shared passion and love for Broadway. As the leader of the Connected Mom Life community, she helps busy moms create the circle of friends they crave. I absolutely love your mission because she firmly believes we weren't made to mom alone, and she's on a mission to see that we stop trying. I cannot agree with you more on your mission. I absolutely love it. I think when we decided to end the Corporate Mom Life podcast and you pivoted in this direction, it was so fitting because I think one thing we kept coming up on consistently throughout that podcast was, how are we building out our community? How are we, surrounding ourselves with the people that are our people, that we're finding our tribe? So I want to jump right in. Welcome to
Thank
Creating the
you.
Vision.
Yeah, I'm so pumped to be here.
Yes, I'm so excited to have you. And I know we spoke a couple weeks ago, just talking about creating the vision for vision boarding and all of that stuff. But one thing that even throughout our discussion, I kept coming back to is, gosh, you've moved around a lot. I know I have too. That was another thing that really connected us and kind of brought us together, was because of our shared journeys of uprooting our families and moving them to different places. So to start, can you share with us kind of what that journey has looked like for you? And specifically, like, how does that pertain to the Connected Mom Life, like building that community out?
Yeah. Yeah. I got married in my mid 20s, I would say. And I married someone who was born and raised in Minnesota and had never left. And I had moved around the country growing up. And I thought, okay, well, if he's it, that means Minnesota's it. That means we're never leaving this state. Like, this is life. And I thought, okay, that's good. I'm good with this. And then within a month of getting married, he came home and he was like, actually, would you be open to moving? And I'm like, well, I thought you were not open to moving. And so that really it threw me, thinking I just like done the vows of like, okay, you're it. And also I'm assuming our life is here. And so we thought, this will be an adventure. And so we moved across the country to a city where we knew no one. We did not have children. We didn't have a dog. We had cats, but they're not really, you don't take your cat for a walk to meet people. And so we found it really trickier than we thought it was going to be to make friends in a city as young adults. And we really started to think it was us. And it wasn't, we had to do a lot of soul searching. I ended up reading this book that helped me understand adult friendship and how, when we grow up, we think, oh, friendship just happens, right? Because that was our experience. Typically, we go to school and we come home with friends. And what's really happening, that I learned from the friendship experts, is that what's really happening is consistency. We're just seeing the same people over and over. And that is what's creating these relationships. And so, when you don't have that buffer of a school anymore, like, where do friends come from? Because I thought you just make all your friends and then they stay your friends. But then no one talked about how we're all going to start moving. And so, once we kind of figured that out, I realized I had been going into a lot of potential friendships with this idea that, like, well, they're probably set on friends, so they don't need any more. And so I was kind of like pre-rejecting them, being like, oh, they don't need me, so I won't like try really hard. And shocker, when you don't try really hard, people are like, okay, I guess, like, cool, like, you're good.
Yeah.
And I wasn't good.
Yeah.
I was not good. And so I started bringing a different energy once I realized kind of what I had been doing. Almost this idea of like, okay, well, I'm going to assume actually everyone wants to be my best friend, and let's see what happens. And of course, not everyone became my best friend, but my circle very much grew much more quickly when I brought that level of energy. And so that was a really big aha for me. And, after living in that city for 5 years, we moved again. This time we had, a young baby. And again, we were moving to a place where we didn't know anyone. And so I was like, okay, not a problem. I've got this. I figured out how to make friends back there. But this time, I had this baby that took a lot of time, and, you know, it did shift how I made friends in that era. But what I did have on my side was just knowing people were open to connection more so than I had maybe felt previously. And so that allowed me to just maybe go into some situations where I could meet potential friends much more confidently. And I was able to make that circle of friends much more quickly, even, even after figuring out, okay, well, how do I do this now with a baby in tow? What does that look like? And so that's really kind of what got me so passionate about friendship and connection was because I didn't have a choice. I didn't have family to rely on. I didn't have a previous network of friends in these cities that we were moving to. We really needed to build a supportive village from scratch. And I knew that it wouldn't just happen. I tried that, in our first move. I just thought, well, let's just see what happens. Well,
Mhm.
do friends just happen like they've done my whole life? And unfortunately, they don't. And so I knew I was going to have to put some level of energy into that. And what I discovered along the way was that it was like this elephant in the room that no one wanted to talk about, the fact that they were craving more friendships or different kind of friends. I would run into moms who would, they technically grew up in the city that I was meeting them in, but they were the first of their friends to have kids or the last. And they were just craving different types. They were craving more friendships. The ones they had were great, but they still had some unmet needs in their kind of connection cups. And so that was really insightful for me to see too of, oh, if I can teach people that it's okay for us to talk about this and that it's safer out there than we think, and like what the rules really are when it comes to making friends in adulthood and how we can do it without it feeling super awkward. Like, I think it could be such a gift to all of us to be able to just be more open about this idea that as we go through life, we have space for more and deeper friendships and connections.
The alignment between goal setting and creating that vision for your future really parallels friendships as well. I mean, I was thinking about when you were talking about just kind of outlining some of the things that you need or that you want or that you're looking for. I mean, that's essentially what you do in the goal setting process. How am I,
Mm-hmm.
what do I need? And then how am I going to get there? And I am in total alignment on adult friendships because, to your point, just like goal setting, we're not really taught that. We're not really taught how to build
Yeah.
friendships. Yeah, it's like comfort in community. It's that comfort in, like, as we're growing up, and that
Mm-hmm.
comfort in just seeing the same people every day. School provides that environment for us. And then we just kind of adapt and we just meet,
Yeah.
we stay friends. I have a core group of friends that I've had since I was in the fourth grade. We all went to school together at an art school, but we were a very, really small school, so we kind of did stick together. And then we went to high school and we all ended up going, on through that program. We picked up another friend along the way that we met our freshman year of high school.
Mm,
And since
love that.
then, we've all stayed really close. The irony is that when I was living in Lexington, they all lived away with the exception of one. And
Mm.
so it was just me and another one of our friends. And then as Dan and I were moving away, they were all moving back. So now I'm the
Yep.
only one that doesn't live in
Mm-hmm.
Kentucky. And that's tough because, oh my goodness, like I just think about all of the friendship memories and all of the things. But every time I go back, I try to visit. So it's been, I would say, initially when we started moving, it was a challenge because
Yeah.
it was easy. I will say that, like, because I had them as insulated friends, it was it was easy and we knew each other. We went back because we had a history. So when I started trying to make friends, I kind of probably went through a lot of the same thought process that you did, in just assuming that these people have probably grown up here their whole life. They already have their friends,
Mm-hmm.
and it really prevented me. And also too, I was doing the corporate mom life thing, the travel, all the
Yeah.
things. So I was that person showing up to everything like right on time. just to be there for my kid, and then literally was leaving after because I didn't have those connections.
Yeah.
So I was just there to fill that need. What would you say, like, what are some ways in which we can like enhance, like if you're moving into that, you mentioned your own, but are there steps or things that you coach women through to be like, okay, you're in a new environment, you're in a new community, or you're just looking for new friends, you're
Yeah.
maybe the shelf life of those friendships or the ones that you're wanting to transition from have expired. What do you
Yeah.
do next to create kind of that vision for your friendship?
Yeah. One of my favorite exercises to do with women, particularly when we first start working together, is a friendship audit.
Ooh,
And
that's good.
that is one of my favorite ways to just kind of get a handle and name what is going on right now for you in friendship. Because it could be that you've just moved. And so maybe it's really obvious to you. You're like, I know that I need friends who live in this city. So you might be very clear on what is feeling unsatisfying in your friendships. Or you might be someone who is just like, I don't feel great about my friends. I don't know why. I don't know if it's because I'm scrolling Instagram and I'm seeing everybody else have more fun than I am, or I'm just not feeling as seen or heard by, people. I don't feel like I'm as understood anymore. So there's a lot to sort out in our interpersonal relationships. And so that's why I like breaking it down to the audit piece. And I ask women to consider kind of three buckets of closeness. That's kind of like where we start. Like, who would you think of as like general acquaintances that you've met, that you're, maybe you've enjoyed having conversations with, but like you wouldn't necessarily call them a friend. Maybe you don't even have their number yet. Whatever that means to you, you don't call them a friend. Where that second bucket would be people, no, you consider them a friend. Whatever that means to you, I give some guidance around that, but there's definitely room to play with because it is important for you to be like, no, well, I feel like I would tell them things. I would maybe ask for help depending upon the circumstance. Like we all have different, thresholds there. And then that third bucket of fierce friends, kind of those ride or die people who like they would be the first to find out, devastating news or also amazing news in your life. And from there, you kind of can see, you might be able to make some assumptions already. But after that, what you can start doing is asking yourself questions like, kind of going through those lists, each of those buckets. Well, how often am I seeing each of these people or having some sort of meaningful conversation with them? And I, kind of guide around like do a circle if it's, this often, or just leave it blank if you have not talked with them in the last month, you know? And then from there, thinking about, okay, you know, how many of these people live within 15 minutes of me, an hour of me? Because what a lot of women find is they actually have great fierce friends. They truly do. The problem is none of them live by them. Your example was perfect of your core group friends who all live in Kentucky. They're probably all on your ride or die list. And if you're feeling unsatisfied in your friendships today, it could be because, yeah, it's not that I don't have friends. It's very rare that we don't truly have friends. It's that either we don't have friends that live nearby, or we might even consider, okay, I'm a new mom. I'm looking at these three buckets. Who else is a mom on this list or a new mom? And then it's identifying, actually, I'm really craving someone who's in a similar season as I am and can really talk about the day to day and truly get what I'm going through. And so we talk about types of friends, like same season friends, same interest friends, neighbor friends. And once we kind of go through all of that processing, it can become really clear, okay, this is why I'm feeling unsatisfied. And I love doing that because we're all so short on time and making friends feels really daunting. There's all the research out there that says it takes an exorbitant amount of hours to make a fierce friend. And that feels really daunting to so many of us who are just so busy. And so by getting really clear on, okay, what am I craving most right now? That then will inform their vision and their goals around friendship and can go after them in a guilt-free way. They don't have to stress about, oh, shoot, I said no to that book club. Well, that's okay. You don't like books and you're really looking for friends who like these things. And so you can your yeses get more free, your no's get more free. And it really is helpful just to start with, okay, where should I spend my limited time and my energy? And oftentimes the audit really helps reveal that.
I love that you talked about friends for a season, the ones that come in your life. My mom always used to say, sometimes people come into your life for a season or a reason,
Mm-hmm.
and they fulfill that purpose. And it doesn't mean that you're going to unfriend them, but you just might not be as engaged with them as you were
Mm-hmm.
during that time period. And she often has referred to my time growing up dancing and going to dance competitions and becoming friends with the moms,
Mm-hmm.
understanding that when I stopped doing that, there wasn't much alignment because she was connected through that channel. She was connected
Yeah.
through me being a part of that. But that doesn't mean that she doesn't look back on it and have fond memories of some of those friendships and some of
Mm-hmm.
those times, because it got her through some of those times as well, when they're all
Yeah.
in solidarity as parents talking about the competition, the overwhelm, this last minute sewing of
Mm-hmm.
costumes, etc. So I love that you mentioned that, because I don't know if we honor that enough to say that that's okay, because I think my perception when I was growing up and even as we started moving was that every friendship was a fierce friendship.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. I
Mm-hmm.
love that you say that. I think constantly that we just need more language for the word friend, because it can mean so many different types of connections, and so many, like, you might call someone a friend and truly, like, you maybe talk once a year, but it's not that you don't have incredibly fond affection for them, but you would also use that same word to describe your core group of friends, that you talked about earlier. And so it's tough that we don't have any more we don't have any other word than friend to describe. You added core group of friends to try
Mm-hmm.
to give more context.
Right.
We try to give sometimes more context to what that word means, but I think because we don't always have language around that, and particularly growing up, you don't understand that not all relationships and connections are meant to, ever reach that ride or die level. But that doesn't mean that that connection and that relationship isn't also incredibly valuable for what it is and what it's bringing to your life. So I love that you bring that up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was just, and I think especially when I had to get out of that feeling when I moved, and then we
Mm-hmm.
started moving consistently, because here I'm inserting myself into these like what I had convinced myself were these
Mm-hmm.
fierce friendship groups, and like, oh, is there enough
Yeah.
room for me? Am I going to be able to fit into this group? And yes, you do
Mm-hmm.
definitely, you find your people, and to your point, some of them are really fierce friendships, and some of them are just people that I see whenever I attend a particular meeting or a particular
Mm-hmm.
group that I'm involved in. I'm
Yeah.
curious to know your thoughts too on the term best friend, because I feel like I
Mm.
see this come up a lot, and I want to hear from you. I want to hear from the
Yeah.
the, the connected the connection specialist when it comes to friendships. Like, yes, what's your opinion?
Yeah. I internally, this is a recent thing. I haven't decided my stance fully on this. I can
Okay.
say I don't have like full on talking points here, but I have noticed in myself recently, I kind of like do a little cringy thing inside. I don't think it shows outwardly when someone says, "Oh, my best friend," and I'm like, really, what do you mean by that? I find myself using one of my best friends that feels more in alignment for me and how I
Mhm.
think about the value that people bring into my life. And I personally, growing up, had probably more of a scarcity mindset around friendship, and probably more of like the mean girl thought about it, of like, well, I need to protect this relationship with this person. She needs to be my best friend. She can't be anyone
Mm,
else's, because that would mean that I'm losing something if she has, a stronger or a strong connection with someone else. And I just, growing up, now learning more about friendship, it's just like, that's just not healthy behavior. It's not something I want my friends to think about when it comes to friendship. And so I just avoid the term best friend unless I'm saying one of, because I just have so many friends that I care so deeply about and feel so connected to and feel are so
Mhm.
important to me. And I just don't like the idea of one of them ever hearing me say my best friend and talking about someone else and have them think that
Mhm.
that diminishes anything about my love for
Right.
them. So,
Yes. I
yeah, I don't
agree.
know. I have some feelings around it that I don't know that I
Yep.
have officially like decided here's my
Mhm.
stance on it, but
Mhm.
yeah, I don't
Yeah, I read an
it's
Adam.
yeah.
Yeah, I read an Adam Grant quote about it a while back, and it was something similar to that
Mhm.
effect of like, well, what metric system have we designed to create say that
Yeah.
this is my best friend? Like they've reached that pinnacle of being best,
Mhm.
the
Yeah.
best. And I tend to find myself saying more like, this is my close friend, or this
Yeah.
is a dear friend of mine, because I think those
Mhm.
in terms can be they're dear to me for different reasons. Like it's
Yeah.
not like the best, but they're very dear to me. It could be that we met under circumstances that brought us close for a particular experience that we were both involved in, or that they
Mhm.
just are someone who has been there for a really long time, and so it kind of
Yeah.
creates more of this nostalgic, like
Mhm.
they're that friend for like all ages type of friend.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why I think, yeah, so core
Yeah.
four, were like kind of those are my childhood friends. They're just because
Mhm.
I think about that as they were when you think about friends, like I liken them to like core memories that happened in my
Yeah.
childhood. They were all
Yeah.
for a part of that. So
Yeah.
that's I think why I refer to them that way. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the dangers, I think, let's say you were going to introduce one of these friends and you said, this is my best friend, or even if you said like one of my best friends, is that, well, the one thing that does that's good for that relationship is you are, you know, essentially megaphoning to the world. You care about me. I'm saying this out
Hmm.
loud to other
Yeah.
people. And so
Yeah.
that's
I
actually a
see
really great
that.
thing. Like, that's awesome. But I do think the framing of it is important because whoever you're introducing this person to, maybe you have a looser connection with them. Sometimes if they hear this is my best friend, in some ways that can close them off to furthering a connection or a relationship with you, thinking, oh, okay, well, you're good. You don't need any other like close friends. And so I've heard other friendship experts talk about the importance of like saying, when you're introducing one of your dear friends and, oh, you have this in common, like you should talk about this, or kind of then offering some sort of way for you all to connect
Hmm.
as like, essentially an offering of, yes, this is a dear friend. And also, we want you to be a part of this, whether that's beyond this moment or not, who knows? But
Hmm.
yeah, I think framing and being mindful of that language is really, really important.
I enjoy introducing my friends to my other friends that don't know each other,
Mhm.
bridging that gap between,
Yeah.
because to your point, I will always meet people or friends of mine and I'll say, oh my gosh, I have another friend who does this. You two, yeah,
Mhm.
definitely should connect.
Yeah.
And I like that because then to your point, I try to include everyone. So then my circle grows larger, but then two, it could be that there's another opportunity for that friend to gain someone really close in their life that
Mhm.
otherwise wouldn't
Yeah.
have been introduced to them had we not made that connection.
Mhm.
So that's the way I look at it, is we can make our world smaller by introducing our friends to our friends.
Yeah.
Is there, and this may be a corny question, but is there a script, or do you
Mm.
encourage people to write out what they might say if they're, because I will say, as much as I love to talk with people, sometimes it's hard for me to
Mhm.
get the conversation up off the ground.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. There's, I think, scripts or like general approaches you can do when you're, first initiating a conversation with someone. Or what I actually think is harder is when you're trying to make a connection stickier. Like you've met a few times already. Now, like, what do we talk about? So, yeah, I think when it comes to initiating conversations, a lot of the wisdom out there is often ask questions. And I think that's good. But sometimes I think making an observation or a statement is sometimes an easier way to actually initiate, like, hey, I'm open to a conversation. I know when I was trying to just meet other moms with kids my age, I would go to the playground in our neighborhood and, we'd all be chasing these kids. And I would often just look up and try to make eye contact and just say, oh my goodness, like these kids are so crazy. I wasn't saying, hi, how are you? What's the age of your kids? But it was just kind of like a, hey, I'm
Right.
open to a conversation while we're here. Like, if you, and you can kind of get a vibe from someone if they're like, nope, I'm actually at the playground to get my work done. You know, you can kind of figure some of that out with some of just making an observation about your surroundings, and making eye contact, smiling. Like that's really easy. And then from there, I have scripts around very particular getting contact information from someone after you just meet. I would do this at the playground all the time back when my kids were little because I just didn't know if I was going to see them again at the playground. And maybe we had like a nice conversation and they lived nearby. So they were like checking a lot of boxes of things that I look out for. Like, ooh, this could be easy to hang out with you because you don't live 30 minutes away. You have a kid the same age as mine. Like that is also important to me right now. So like they're ticking these boxes that I've, thought of through the audit. And I will say something like, usually like a statement like, this was fun. Like the park is always more fun when there's people here. Would you want to exchange numbers or like Instagram handles, however you're most comfortable? And then I follow that up with how I will use it in a very low pressure way. And then I usually say, so for example, I would usually say, I could like shoot you a text the next time we come to the park if it works for you. And so it's not like I'm saying, hey, can I have your phone number so that I can text you all the time and we can become best friends forever?
Right.
It's just like, hey, you were nice to talk to you. I'm affirming you.
Right.
If you want to exchange numbers, cool. And then I'll let you know the next time I come here. If you want to come, you live down the street, I live down the street, like win-win. And so like, that's kind of some easy ways you can do it. If you meet someone at a school function, you can say, hey, do you want to exchange numbers? Like maybe sometimes I get questions about what the heck is going on in the third grade class, or, you can talk about how you'll use it in a way that isn't so like overwhelming or creepy or awkward.
Yeah.
For
Yes.
sure.
Well, yes, I've been, and sometimes I've been that mom who you have to reach out to 4 or 5 times. And then sometimes I've been that person who's reached out to someone 4 or 5 times. And every time it's like, oh, it's not, oh, sorry. Like, we're not going to be at the park today, or we're going to be that. And I always say, I'll keep trying until I just really feel like it's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
Cause sometimes time just does play into
Yeah.
it as well.
For sure. And like, that's great if you have, that's a very healthy mindset for you to have, because that is truly what's happening. I know a lot of moms and women will sometimes start to overthink like, oh shoot, I told her I was going to the park and she said that she was busy. So that means she hates me.
Yeah.
No, she was actually just probably busy.
Yeah.
It is safe to let her know that you're going to be there next week when you go. Like if you don't get anything back, like usually someone will say, oh shoot, I'm busy today, but I would love to next time. Mm-hmm. That is going to be your typical response. And you have to trust that and you have to believe it. Mm-hmm. And you have to move forward with that. And then, if you get to a point where you've reached out 3 times and then that person has not offered anything on their end, like let it go. It's okay. Mm-hmm. Like you don't have to overly invest. If you like, let's say you were at the park and this happens, I don't know, I'm going to say 1 out of 20 times. So it doesn't happen a lot, mm-hmm. but like you just were like, oh my gosh, we could be best friends. Like you just get that, mm-hmm. like, oh man, if the stars were aligned, like, mm-hmm. and we lived next door, we would be best friends. Like you get that sometimes from people that you meet. So in that case, maybe I would try a little harder, but for the most part, it's like, okay, no big deal. Like this is not working out. It's feeling too hard. Like it's okay to let it go. Like you didn't fail. We only all have so much time and energy, and yeah, just put a little bit of energy in, see what comes back. If not much is coming back, it's okay. Move on. Put your energy somewhere else.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Put your energy somewhere else. Exactly. Because, yeah, because we're worth that energy too. Like receiving it, giving it on both sides. Okay, so this brings me to my next question, and maybe you have a response, maybe you have an answer for this or not. But is there a time when you're like, you had a mom in your mind, maybe it perceived like
Mhm.
mom fail connection. Maybe it ended up turning out to be something that like bonded you together because it was
Mm.
just like, oh my gosh,
Yes.
that was a fail. And then
Yes.
the outcome was
Okay.
actually friendship. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So I do have a funny story about, so we recently moved back to Minnesota, and but we live in a area of the cities that we have not lived before. We have a whole new school community that we have no history with. We have no history with this neighborhood. Everything is still feeling very from scratch outside of like our kind of family and more historical established connections in the area. And so I've been kind of leaning into school. And this one mom I met at like the kinder play date that they did last year. And honestly, she was the 1 out of 20 feeling of
Oh,
like,
awesome. Okay.
oh, like, oh my gosh, like this is really exciting. I'm trying to get my hopes up here, but like this feels good. And so we met at a park, like for a play date, maybe like a couple weeks later. And that was like great. I was like, okay, like, yeah, maybe let's see. She had 4 children, or she still has 4 children. And so I was like,
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know what she has capacity for, but I'm here for what
Yeah.
she has right now. And I took, anyway, she'd invited my youngest over for a play date to her house. So I'd never been to her house. And I like Google mapped it and I was like, oh, I think this is going to be like maybe kind of a big house. And we pull in and it is a big house. And she like lives on a farm and it's a rambler, but it's a very long, big rambler. And my kids were so funny. They were like, you did not tell us that they live in a mansion. And I was like, I mean, like, and in my head, honestly, Maria, I'm like, our house is the same square footage. We just have 3 stories. So it doesn't look like the
Hmm.
same, And oh my gosh. So anyway, I was able to rein them in from the mansion language like before we walked in the door, which was
Yeah.
great. But the next time I see her, we're sitting and I lean over to her and I was like, oh, hey, I have been meaning to ask you. And my oldest goes, why you live in a mansion? And I
Oh
was
my
like,
God.
I was like, and she was like the best about it. She was like, yeah, I like don't want to move ever again. So we just went for it on the first one. And I was like, thank you for dealing with my ridiculous kid. Like, and I did not tell him, like, all the
Yeah.
things are like, oh my gosh,
Yes.
like, I'm not talking about how you live in a mansion with my kids and all these things. And she was just like so great about it. And we joke about it all the time now. And the things, honestly, the things her kids say to me, like, it's the best. We just
Hmm.
joke about the craziness of these. So, yeah, sometimes those like embarrassing things can bond you in,
Yeah.
and also be a really good sign as to whether this is a good person for you.
Hmm.
Like if she would have freaked out about like, oh my gosh, I cannot, or made bad assumptions about me,
Hmm.
based on some of those comments. Yeah, those are all like sometimes really helpful situations for seeing people's character and flexibility in
Hmm.
what they're able to offer in a relationship. And so while those things can feel uncomfortable, they're also really helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. And well, one, I'll just say, yes, kids absolutely say sometimes the most embarrassing things. And it's like, yeah, you're not supposed to say that. Like, this is us talking in our home. Let's not share
Mhm.
that outside. It's not for
Yep.
public
Yep.
consumption. But they just
Hmm.
don't have those filters sometimes. But it can create an opportunity to bond and become good friends with someone who, yes,
Yep.
if taken in the right context in the right way, you found your people, which
Hmm.
is a good feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah, a really good feeling.
Yeah.
So, last question before I get to my do the dang goal question. Last one would just be more centered along the advice that you would give to someone who's feeling really frustrated and really down about not finding their just a friend or not making those connections.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the struggle is real. Like I've really changed my tune about how I talk about friendship. I don't like to be flippant about like, oh, it's just so easy. Just go to the park and like get a number. And it's not easy. Like I said, 1 in 20 you feel
Mhm.
like a true spark with. The other
Mhm.
19, you're like, I don't know. Let's see where this goes. And that can feel like really overwhelming. It can feel like a lot of work. It can feel like a lot of not fun.
Mhm.
And so if you are a person that in general doesn't enjoy having kind of loose conversation that isn't deep, which is often where you have to start. I love reframing small talk to a starting place. Like it's a place to
Mm.
start.
Mm.
It's a
That.
place to feel this out. Sometimes that mental reframe can help lift some of the mental energy of the load of what it can feel like to try again, especially when you feel like you're just spinning your wheels over and over. And so for the person that's feeling down about it, sometimes it's good to actually just take a break from like pursuing it and just like take a beat and don't necessarily beat yourself up over invitations you're saying no to or anything like that and feeling like, oh, I'm just losing all my chances. But take some time to really think about, okay, what am I craving most? And then can you commit to showing up in a space where you will likely run into those types of connections you're craving more? Can you add some consistency to it? Sometimes it's that lack of consistency that can feel so like, ugh, I'm trying everything, but you're not trying everything consistently. So then, yeah, it's not working. You're spinning.
Mhm.
And so that doesn't mean that if you commit to showing up to a place, then for sure you're going to find your people, but you're going to have more of a shot if you can at least give it 3 months and also just have realistic expectations about it. That's often where we get so frustrated is because we want to show up to something and then we want to have ride or die easy friendships at the second meeting. And that's not really realistic, but it's not maybe as far away as even like the experts with the hours they say it takes to make friendships or to make a, dear, dear friend. I don't know that I fully agree with that research yet. I mean, who am I? I'm not a researcher. I, I've got nothing to back up that statement other than I feel like I've created a lot of close relationships in ways that have not taken that level of
Mhm.
hour through just doing simple things like asking for help or reaching out and staying in touch on social media or via phones or voice text. I think if we can think outside the box of how we connect outside of that face to face, which I very much think is like, the pinnacle and great, and we need to make space for that. But there's other ways to nurture relationships and get them to feel and to get us to feel truly that ease and like emotional closeness that does not always require consistent face to face to face.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and I think social media has definitely changed the game on friendships. And I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we met on social media, so
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I think about that. I think about some friends that I've known for now 4 years, and I've yet to meet them in
Mm-hmm.
real life, but yet we speak on a consistent basis, and so we're
Yeah.
in each other's lives in a different
Yeah.
capacity, albeit not physically present for each other, but
Mm-hmm.
very much present for each other and helping each other through through whatever it may be, business related, just life
Mm-hmm.
related, motherhood related, etc. So now I appreciate that there's such synergy between creating that vision for your life from like a goal setting, goal planning,
Mm-hmm.
mapping out everything. And just like I would tell someone who's about to run a marathon, you can't just show up 2 days later. Just like you said, you can't expect the second interaction to be like, okay, now you're my
Yeah.
ride or die friend. Because
Mm-hmm.
that's a little overwhelming. Just like it's overwhelming to show up for a marathon, 4 days after you sign up for the race and expect, to run it. You have to, it's that consistent practice of it. So there's just so much alignment and so much synergy. And I love that because I think there's so many misconceptions that we harbor that around friendships and around creating those connections.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love the analogy of my friendships and thinking about an airplane, particularly, and I'm mixing up my analogies here, but like you take your ride or dies and they're in first class, they're at the front of the
Mm-hmm.
plane with you. And but like truly, if you only had people up in first class, your plane would not fly very well. You really do need so many different types of connections and friendships and people in your orbit, in your circle, to really help you feel grounded and kind of, get to where you're going or wanting to go with the vision for your life. And one of my I guess, greatest maybe lessons I feel like women take away from our work together is realizing, oh, not all friends are created equal. And that's not a bad thing.
Mm.
That's actually really good. And so when we can take some expectations off of people, when we can, in relationships, we really start enjoying them more and really find more meaning in them too. And so I love just kind of that idea of being realistic and knowing that there's so many different types of connections and friendships that bring value to our lives. And yeah, we don't have to get everyone to ride or die for that not to be a valuable person in our life.
I appreciate that so much because, yeah, I think I'm excited that more people will hear this message because I think we make a lot of assumptions. I know I have that I
Mm-hmm.
shared today just about friendship in general. And so I'm really glad to hear you share that message because it
Yeah.
needs to resonate. And in the new year, coming, into this new year, I even sat down and did a little bit of that own audit of like, who do I want in my life this year? Who do I want to be a part of my circle, a part of my tribe? Who are the women that pour into me or who are the women that pour into me consistently that I'm not doing a good job pouring into them? Like they're constantly giving to me. And am I not reciprocating that?
Mm-hmm.
And then making that decision, do I want to or do I not? And going from there. And then truly trying to figure out, okay, these are the women that I'm going to make space for this year. Also acknowledging that we're just in January. So it could be, come September, I could have 5 more women or 10 more
Mm-hmm.
connections in my life that I didn't account for at the beginning.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
being
for
open to
sure.
that, being open to that.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And I know you've done some great coaching for me around visioning for the year. And I really am focused, strength is what I'm focused on
Oh,
in a
love
lot of
it.
areas of my life.
Yes.
And that is true of friendship. And what I love about that is I know that my focus this year is around, deepening
Mm-hmm.
some of those connections that we've made in kind of the first year and a half, 2 years back. And also, that doesn't mean I am saying no to new relationships. It just means so much of my energy in the last year and a half has gone into cultivating new connections. And so that energy is going to shift now, into strengthening. And I'm really excited to see what that cultivates this year when the focus is more on that, while always,
Yeah.
maintaining openness to who
Yes.
who may come.
Yeah, I love
Mhm.
that. I love that.
Mhm.
Okay, so to round it out, I always ask all my guests, what is your do the dang goal? What's that burning goal that you walked into 2024 saying, I have to accomplish this goal?
Yeah. Well, you did a lot of good coaching for me around like it's okay if this pivots, but
Yeah.
as of today,
Yes.
the do the dang goal is to do weekly podcast episodes. I had
Love it.
shifted to every other and through the move to kind of maintain my sanity. And I'm feeling really excited and energized that weekly is the right decision for right now.
Mhm.
And I'm excited to just kind of do the dang thing, see what happens. And then if I decide to pivot from there, totally fine. But it feels good to know, okay, that's the focus for right now.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Yes, that being open and all of the things. But
Mm-hmm.
weekly, we want to hear from you weekly. So yes, I'm in support of this. I'm in support of this goal. Where can people find you if there are listeners like struggling, thinking, "Oh my gosh, I need you in my life to help me." Where can they find you?
Yeah, everything's on my website, theconnectedmomlife.com. And then that's also my Instagram handle, the Connected Mom Life. And so that's the social media space I hang out the most these days. We'll see if that changes in the year, but that's probably the best place to find me and more of the behind the scenes bits of life and what it actually looks like to maintain a circle, create a circle, while also juggling literally all the other things
Mm-hmm.
that take our time and attention
Mm-hmm.
in a day. And so I like to be honest about here's how I'm trying to fit in friendship and make it a
Yeah.
priority amidst all these other priorities
Mm-hmm.
too.
Yes. Yeah, it's definitely a balance. And
Hmm.
I love your focus for this year, strength. And I love that it's with that idea of just enhancing, that you spent this time cultivating and now you're going to be strengthening and enhancing those friendships and relationships. I think that's really special, and I love the intention behind it. So
Yeah.
I am wishing you all the success this year with
Thank
weekly
you. Same.
podcasting, getting back, and then all of the things that you're working on. And yes, guys, go follow Emily, go check her out on her website. And thank you so much for being a part of this conversation today. I really appreciate you sharing, and you definitely taught me a lot that, or I think maybe even affirmed some of the things or thoughts that I had about connections and friendships that maybe I haven't been willing to ask until now. So I really appreciate you helping me through those.
Absolutely. I appreciate you having me on. Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you.